She looked like she had been left behind by the entire world. A 6-year-old girl, pale as porcelain, lay curled on a plastic airport bench, motionless, until the man who owned that very terminal stepped into her shadow. Christian Hale had walked countless concourses in his life, but never like this. For 30 years he had built his empire out of steel, glass, and jet fuel, turning a bankrupt airfield into one of the busiest networks on the continent. Tonight, though, the empire felt hollow. What was an empire when a child lay forgotten in the middle of it? He stopped at gate 27. The fluorescent light hummed, indifferent. On the bench, a little girl. Blonde hair clung damp to her temples. Her small chest rose and fell with shallow, uneven breaths. An old stuffed rabbit, ears frayed and patched, rested against her cheek. Her socks did not match. Her shoes were too small. She looked like a ghost misplaced by the living. "Hey, sweetheart," he murmured, kneeling down. "Can you hear me?" No answer, not even a stir. Christian turned slightly. Officer Daniels, his head of security, stood a few feet away, posture stiff but eyes worried. "How long?" Christian asked. "Almost an hour, sir. No ticket, no ID. Cameras caught her wandering alone. And no one has claimed her? Nothing. It's like she appeared out of thin air." Christian pressed 2 fingers to her forehead. Heat surged against his skin, scalding, dangerous. She was burning up. A knot tightened in his throat, one he hadn't felt since the days before power and wealth had built his fortress of detachment. He straightened, his tone snapping into command. "Get the medical team. Now, shut down this gate. And not a word to the media." "Yes, sir." He adjusted his cufflinks, a reflex born from decades of boardrooms, but the gesture felt wrong, almost obscene here. This wasn't a quarterly hiccup. This was a child. His empire could wait. 10 minutes later, in the private infirmary wing, usually reserved for dignitaries and billionaires, the girl lay on a white bed. Tubes ran from her tiny arm. Monitors blinked soft green pulses. Nurse Lillian, focused and efficient, murmured readings to her team. "Severe dehydration. Temperature 104. If it spikes further, we risk seizures." Christian stood near the foot of the bed, arms folded, eyes locked on the fragile figure beneath the blanket. He should have walked away. He never involved himself in details. He paid others to. But he couldn't move. "She said something," Lillian added quietly. Christian's head turned. "What?" The nurse hesitated, almost reluctant to speak. Before she passed out, she whispered, "Don't leave me, Papa." The words landed like iron in his chest. He turned his face away, jaw clenched. Coincidence, he told himself. Fever makes children delirious. But the echo burrowed into him all the same. Outside in the corridor, his assistant, Evan Carter, waited with a tablet tucked under one arm. "We've pulled all security feeds from the last 12 hours, Evan said. "Most are clean, but there's a gap. Gate 8 rebooted around the exact time she appeared. I've got Rosa, the cleaning supervisor, coming up. She thinks she's seen the girl before." Christian nodded absently, but his eyes drifted back through the glass at the sleeping child. There was something uncanny in her face. The round cheeks, the delicate line of the chin. Features that stirred memories he had locked away years ago. God help him. She looked like someone he had tried not to remember. "Find out who she is," Christian said at last, voice low but firm. "And if there's no record?" Evan asked. Christian's gaze never left the girl. "Then we make one." Nurse Lillian entered with a thin manila folder. "Sir, we ran a full blood panel. No guardian match in the database, but—" She hesitated. "There's something unusual." Christian rose to his full height. "What is it?" Her voice dropped. Blood type AB negative. Extremely rare, less than 1% of the population. Only 3 recorded donations in this state over the last decade. One of them was yours. The room seemed to tilt. Christian stared at the page, at the circled letters in blue ink. AB. His own blood. His own rare line. He swallowed, throat dry. 3 years ago, after heart surgery, he had donated for research. And now, this child. It's not proof, Lillian said gently. But it's more than a coincidence. Christian's eyes returned to the girl. Her breathing had steadied under the oxygen mask, though her lips were still cracked. Her small hands curled around that stuffed rabbit like it was the last tether to the world. He had never once wondered if he might have a child hidden in the shadows of his past. But tonight, staring through the glass, he wondered if fate had decided for him. Later, when Rosa finally arrived, short, gray-haired, her uniform still dusted with cleaning powder, she spoke softly, almost reverently. "Yes, Mr. Hale, I've seen her, near Gate 8 for days, sitting on her bag, waiting. Always waiting. Waiting for what?" "For her mother," Rosa said. "She told me she had to be brave, just like her mama taught her." Christian closed his eyes briefly. Brave. That was a word Elise used to say. Elise Ward, 7 years ago. Intelligent, fierce, and unafraid to challenge him. She had walked away, refused his help, vanished into silence. She had never said she was carrying a child. Was it possible? That Elise's silence had been hiding this little girl? Back in his office high above Gate 9, the night stretched endless across the tarmac. Aircraft gleamed like sleeping giants under sodium lights. Christian poured himself a bourbon, but it remained untouched on the desk. In his other hand he held a locket, small, silver, worn smooth with time. It had been around the girl's neck. He pressed the catch. Inside, a faded photo of a young woman holding a newborn. Her eyes tired, but her expression fierce. Christian's hand trembled. He did not need to ask who she was. He already knew. The glass walls reflected his face back at him. Powerful, cold, untouchable. The face the world knew. But inside, something cracked. For the first time in decades, Christian Hale whispered words, not to his empire, not to his board, but to the darkness beyond the glass. "Who are you, little one? And what have they hidden from me?" He stayed at the window until dawn, the file still open, the locket still warm in his palm, the name already rising in his chest, though he had never spoken it aloud. Anya. The girl on the bench had a name. And whether the world liked it or not, he was going to uncover the truth. The first sound she made was not a word, but a fragile breath, thin as silk, tearing in the dark. The private infirmary hummed with machines, curtains shifting like pale sails. Christian Hale had not moved from the chair beside her bed all night. When her eyes opened, blue, fever-clouded but searching, he leaned closer. "You're the man from the bench," she whispered. "I am," he said. "And you're safe now." She frowned at the IV, at the beeping screen, then at him again. "Safe means someone stays." "Yes," he said. "It means that." Nurse Lillian stepped in with quiet timing, checking the drip. "Temperature down to 101. Hydration improving." She smiled at the girl. "You did the hard part. You kept fighting." The child's hand tightened on the frayed rabbit. "Mom said brave is just doing the next thing, even when you don't feel like it." Christian felt the words like a stone skipping across an old pond of memory. Elise had once said something nearly identical to him. The door opened. 2 women entered. Mrs. Reeves from Child Protective Services, silver hair, calm authority, and a younger associate with a clipboard. "Mr. Hale," Reeves began, "we're here to ensure the child's safety. Until guardianship is established, placement falls under the state." "She stays here," Christian said evenly. "DNA can be taken today. I will cooperate." Reeves studied him, this man whose name crowned terminals and balance sheets, and then turned toward the girl. "Sweetheart, do you know where you'd like to be while we figure things out?" The little one looked at Christian's sleeve, then at his eyes. "I want to be with Mr. Chris," she said softly. Reeves's expression shifted, a fraction closer to trust. "Very well. Provisional placement here pending confirmation." She handed over thin forms, their weight measured not in paper, but in consequence. Christian signed each page without hesitation. When it was done, Anya, the name written now on the form, no longer just minor female unknown, slid down the blanket. "Do you have pancakes where you live?" The Empire paused. "I believe we can arrange that," he said. Hours later, the private car swept them through city twilight. Anya pressed her nose to the window, rabbit clutched like a passport. "Is your house loud?" she asked. "It's very quiet," he admitted. "Too quiet." The estate gates opened. Light poured from windows like promises that had waited too long to be kept. Inside, Helen, the housekeeper, 60, hair white as salt, knelt to the child's level. "You must be Anya. Welcome home." The word home hung in the air. Anya looked up at Christian as if to confirm it was legal tender. He nodded once. In the kitchen, lemon pancakes appeared, imperfect circles glistening with syrup. Anya climbed onto a stool, eating carefully, as if testing whether food could be trusted. Christian watched, and for the first time in years felt his house feeding more than himself. "Do you have a room just for me?" she asked. "Yes. And if you don't like it, we'll move the walls." Her mouth curved. "Can we paint stars?" "Galaxies," he said. Upstairs, the lavender room waited. Bed beneath a window, lamp with constellations, a jar on the nightstand labeled, "Wishes Go Here." Anya touched every surface like she was mapping a country. At the window, she asked, "Do trees keep secrets?" "They prefer truth," Christian said. "Will you?" "Yes." Satisfied, she settled into bed, rabbit under her chin. "Then I can stay till my head isn't buzzy?" "As long as you want." The sentence startled him with its own truth. Later, in his office, Evan placed a locked metal case on the desk. "From a Denver storage unit in Elise Ward's name. We intercepted the auction notice." Inside lay a worn leather journal. Christian opened it with care. Elise's handwriting leaned forward like a runner at the start line. "January 3rd, I told no one. What could I say? He would want to fix it. But some things are not broken. They are new, and new is frightening." He closed the book, pulse unsteady. It was not cowardice. It was grief in ink. "Press is circling already," Evan warned. "An image leaked. If you don't speak, others will." "I'll make a statement," Christian said. "On my terms, but not at the cost of her." Evan nodded, then left him with the journal and the night. Near dawn, Christian tried his hand at pancakes. The batter was uneven, the lemon squeezed too hard, but the kitchen filled with the smell of mornings he had long denied himself. Anya shuffled in, hair tangled, rabbit perched like a general on her shoulder. "I dreamed about the tree," she announced. "It told me not to be afraid of mornings." "That's good advice," he said gravely. She watched the pan. "Sometimes my heart goes fast and I don't know why." "It's learning a new house," he said. "Mine too." She seemed pleased to share the condition. A knock sounded. Mrs. Reeves entered with a DNA kit. "Quick swab," she told Anya, "like brushing a tooth." Anya complied solemnly, then demanded another pancake as payment. Reeves allowed herself a smile before sealing the sample. "We'll have results within 48 hours. Until then, Mr. Hale, you remain provisional guardian. Be ready for scrutiny. Truth has many witnesses." When she was gone, Christian looked at the girl devouring blueberries. The locket lay in the nightstand upstairs. The journal waited in his office. The past was waking, and it would not be gentle. But the present, with its syrup stains and morning light, was here, and for the first time, he wanted to stay inside it. Morning came the way trust does, quietly, with the sound of ordinary things. Somewhere in the house, a faucet sighed. Helen's steps moved through the hall. Outside, the oak stretched its branches into pale gold. Christian Hale whisked batter in the kitchen, lemon zest brightening his hands. Beside the stove, the rabbit with the loosened ear sat upright, as if appointed sous chef by decree of childhood. Anya padded in, mismatched socks, hair a polite storm, and climbed onto her stool. "Good morning, Admiral," he told her. "Admiral of Blueberries," she corrected, sliding 3 into his palm. They ate together. After the second pancake, Anya said, "The tree told me a secret. You should tell me a story today, a real one." "I will," he said. "A true one." The phone buzzed. A message from Reeves. Swabs received. Results in 48 hours. Another from Evan. Press inquiries rising. Statement window, 2 days max. And a third, from a Denver number he had ignored last night. He returned the call. "Detective Rowan Carter, Denver PD," came the voice. "We've reopened a file. Elise Ward." Christian gripped the counter. "What do you have?" "Footage. Day she collapsed in Boulder Terminal. A man approached her, mid-40s, gray suit, handed her a folder. She pulled her daughter close. 30 seconds later, she collapsed. Hospital records from that day were tampered with. We suspect interference." Christian's silence was flint on steel. "I'll need that footage," he said. "You'll have it," Carter replied. "And sir, if someone tried to keep your child from you, I intend to know who." Anya watched him hang up. "Is that the person who finds out about bad things?" "Yes," Christian said. "He makes secrets louder." She seemed satisfied and turned to her drawing, a plane with wings too brave for physics. He texted Evan, "Pull internal logs. Any outreach from Elise. 7 years. All offices. And cross-check vendor access at Denver Terminal." On it came the reply, "Expect legal to push back. I'll bring a crowbar." By mid-morning, the estate was an instrument tuning itself. Helen folded towels. A florist delivered pale irises for a house unused to flowers. An IT courier arrived with a hard case containing the Boulder footage. In his office, Christian and Evan lowered the blinds. The screen filled with Elise, gray coat, hair pinned back, exhaustion sharp as glass. Little Anya, barely walking, peered up at a departures board. Then the man, suit bland enough to erase itself, folder extended like an offer. Elise shook her head. Her chin rose, defiance distilled into posture. He left. She faltered, collapsed. Evan froze the frame, adjusted contrast. "Recognize him?" Christian studied the slope of the shoulders, the geometry of calculated ordinariness. "Not yet, but I will." They sent stills to Carter and to Hale Security for gate analysis. Evan laid more papers on the desk. Old inbox sweep. 2 years after Elise left Boston, a message flagged as spam. Request for acknowledgement regarding child support. deleted an hour later from a paralegal's admin account. That paralegal left 5 years ago. The firm? Schroer and Kearns. Christian's jaw locked. Valerie Kearns. Counsel once trusted with silence. Silence now rotted into evidence. "Find her," Christian said. Helen knocked softly. Anya asks if the stars can move closer to the bed. "Tell her the stars have a union," he said. "Negotiations after lunch." Helen's eyes flicked to the frozen frame of Elise, then back. She did not ask questions. "Tea?" "Yes, please." Later, Anya entered carrying a drawing. A man and girl stood beneath a great arch, hand in hand, a crescent moon above them. "For your office," she said. "Permanent installation," he promised, setting it on the shelf beside models of aircraft and bound annual reports. He kept his promise from breakfast. "I knew your mother," he told her. "She was brave in the old-fashioned way. She wanted good things for you. She was bringing you here." "To the pancakes?" she asked. "To me," he said. "But I didn't know. That is a truth that hurts." He paused. "Now I know. And I'm not going anywhere." She listened, rabbit cocked in her arms like a witness. "Is my mom gone?" "Yes," he said. "She died. But the ways she loved you did not." Anya's face tightened but did not break. "Can we visit her?" "We can visit where she was, and we can make a place here where she still matters." "Like a garden," she said. "Yes, like a garden." That afternoon, Christian dialed the board chair. "I'm making a statement tomorrow. Ethics review effective immediately. Stock will take the hit. We rebuild in public." "Christian," she cautioned, "this invites litigation." "It invites daylight," he said. "We can live with that." He hung up, opened Elise's journal again. April 9th. Anna's first laugh. If he ever hears it, he will recognize himself in it and be terrified in the best way. The laugh echoed in his mind. He had heard it this morning over pancakes. Evening softened the estate. On the back steps, Christian sat beside Anya. They watched the oak scatter its shade. "Mr. Chris?" she asked. "Yes." "When the important lady brings back the test that proves we match, do we have to change anything?" "Yes," he said. Her brow furrowed. "We'll need more pancake batter, and maybe a cat." She thought seriously. "Captain Marshmallow requires a deputy. The cat can be promoted." "Deputy Marshmallow," he agreed. She leaned her small shoulder against his arm. It was not weight, it was trust. They sat like that until the day folded itself into dusk. The oak murmured to the dark, and the first truths of their new life had been spoken aloud. The morning of the statement began with rain. Not the kind that drenches cities into panic, but a slow, deliberate drizzle, like the world reminding itself that even stone requires water to endure. Christian Hale stood at the window of his office, the city blurred in gray ribbons beyond. On the desk lay two objects, Elise's journal and Anya's drawing. One belonged to the past, the other to the future. Between them sat the present, waiting for him to speak into it. "Mr. Hale," Evans said from the doorway, "the press pool's assembling in Terminal C. 30 reporters, 6 cameras. We've restricted it to verified outlets. Still, it will spread." Christian didn't turn. "Good. Better to let daylight in than let rumor rot in the dark. Are you ready?" "No," Christian admitted. "But she deserves it anyway." Anya appeared, small in the doorway, Helen close behind with a hand ready at her shoulder. She wore a lavender sweater slightly too big, sleeves rolled like the cuffs of someone in training for adulthood. The rabbit dangled from her grip. "Are you going to tell them?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "Will they be mean?" Some, he answered honestly. But truth is stronger than mean. She nodded gravely. Then you should bring the rabbit. He knows how to listen. Helen chuckled softly. Christian bent down, touched Anya's hair once. The rabbit stays here and guards your room. He'll file a full report when we return. Okay, she whispered, though her eyes lingered on him until the elevator closed. Terminal C had been scrubbed of passengers. Security kept the press in a neat crescent facing the podium. Cameras hummed like insects that feed on silence. Christian walked in without flourish. No entourage, no spectacle. Only Evan at his flank, carrying a folder that looked too thin for its consequence. He took the podium. The microphone tested his breath, then yielded. "My name is Christian Hale," he began. "You know me as the man who built these terminals, these runways, these numbers in your ledgers. But today I speak not as an executive, but as a man who has discovered, late, painfully, that the most important ledger is measured in people." Cameras clicked. He continued. 2 nights ago, in this very airport, a child was found alone. That child is named Anya. She is safe. She is in my care. And pending confirmation through the state's own process, she is my daughter. The air shifted. Reporters leaned forward as if gravity had changed. "I did not know of her existence," Christian said, voice even but carrying something raw. "Her mother, Elise Ward, chose to raise her without my involvement. Elise is no longer alive. I will not speculate here on her reasons, nor will I diminish her courage, but I will say this. The silence that kept my daughter from me is a silence I will no longer allow." Hands shot up. The press coordinator tried to order them, but Christian lifted his own hand, once a gesture of empire, now a request for simple civility. "I will take 3 questions. A woman in a navy blazer. Mr. Hale, critics will accuse you of staging this revelation to soften your corporate image after recent antitrust scrutiny. How do you respond?" Christian's mouth tightened, then steadied. "If reputation management were my goal, I would have chosen something cleaner than fatherhood." Laughter rippled, nervous but genuine. "This is not strategy. This is truth." A man in wire-rimmed glasses. "What of custody? Will CPS challenge your fitness, given your schedule, your power, your enemies?" "They should," Christian said. "That's their job. And my job is to prove worthy. Through tests, through courts if necessary, through pancakes at 6 in the morning, whatever is required." The third. "Do you believe someone interfered to prevent you from knowing about her?" A pause. Cameras leaned closer. "Yes," Christian said. "And I intend to find out who. For now, my focus is my daughter's safety. The rest will come." He stepped back. No closing flourish. No applause. Just the sound of shutters and rain against glass. In the car afterward, Evan exhaled. "You bought goodwill. Maybe even belief. Markets will waver but recover. Families watching that broadcast just saw a man, not a machine." Christian looked out at the blurred streets. Let them. It was not for them. It was for her. He thought of Anya upstairs, waiting with the rabbit, asking if people would be mean. He had faced antitrust hearings, Senate inquiries, boardroom coups. None had left his chest feeling this hollow, this braced. Back at the estate, Anya was coloring at the kitchen table. She looked up as he entered. "Did you tell them?" "I did." "Did they believe you?" "Some. But belief is like a garden. It grows if you keep watering it." She nodded, dipping a crayon into fierce purple. "Then we should plant more flowers." Helen, wiping counters, murmured, "Out of the mouths of babes." That evening, Detective Carter arrived, trench coat damp, eyes sharp. He carried a laptop. The man from the footage. Our analysts enhanced his gait. Matches with 92% probability to a consultant who worked for Schroer and Kearns during your antitrust defense. Name, Daniel Rusk. Christian's pulse ticked. Rusk. He was present at one board session. Bland man. Vanilla resume. Vanilla men are often hired to do bitter work, Carter said. If he passed Elise a folder, it could have been legal intimidation. Or worse. We're pulling his travel records. He vanished from consulting rosters 5 years ago. Find him, Christian said. We're trying, Carter replied. But understand, if a firm buried this, they'll bury him too. Anya appeared at the door, rabbit in hand. Is this about my mom? The men froze. Carter softened his posture. Yes, sweetheart. About keeping her story safe. Anya studied him with frank appraisal. Are you one of the good ones? Carter smiled faintly. I try to be. She nodded once, satisfied, and padded back toward the lavender room. Christian's throat ached with something he refused to name in front of another man. Later, after Carter left, Christian sat by Anya's bed. The stars on the lampshade glowed, galaxies repainted by Helen's steady hands. Mr. Chris? Anya asked sleepily. Yes. If the truth is scary, do we still tell it? Yes, he said. Especially then. Even if people don't clap? Especially then. She considered this, then tucked the rabbit under her chin. Okay. Her eyes closed. The monitor of her breath, the steady rise and fall, was the only applause he needed. Downstairs, Christian opened Elise's journal again. A line waited for him. July 14th. She asked today if her papa knows her. I said yes, but he is busy saving skies. I hope skies are worth the waiting. He closed the book and whispered to the empty room, They weren't, but you were. Rain tapped against the glass. Somewhere in the house, a child dreamed without fever. And for the first time, Christian Hale allowed himself not the armor of certainty, but the fragile grace of hope. The day the envelope arrived, the house had the hush of a chapel. Helen was decanting light into the kitchen the way only she could. Curtains half open, kettle murmuring, a bowl of lemons on the counter like small suns. Anya was at the table with a purple crayon, instructing the rabbit on aviation. Christian was pretending, poorly, not to watch the driveway. At 9:02 a.m., a sedan rolled in, wet tires whispering over stone. Mrs. Reeves stepped out with the brisk grace of someone who knows paper is heavier than it looks. She crossed the threshold carrying a flat white envelope. The state seal sat on it like a hand. Good morning, she said to the room, but mostly to the child. Do we have pancakes? Always, Anya replied, solemn as a magistrate. Reeves smiled, real, quick, gone, and turned to Christian. Mr. Hale? He nodded, throat tight against a dozen sentences that would not help. Shall we? He said, and led her to the study that had learned to be a different room in the past 2 days. Evan waited there already, a legal pad closed in his lap, a pen uncapped and patient. Reeves laid the envelope on the desk. For a moment, no one moved. Some things deserve to sit in the air long enough to make a shape. Before we open it, Reeves said, a few reminders. Whatever it says, Anya's welfare stays the center. You have done well by that so far. I intend to keep doing well, Christian said. Reeves broke the seal with a thumbnail and slid out 2 sheets. Her eyes skimmed, then settled. She breathed. Positive, she said. Parentage confirmed. Probability calculation gives us everything the court needs. The room didn't cheer. It steadied. Christian had not noticed his hand on the back of a chair until he felt the wood again. He nodded once, as if to someone far off who had been waiting. Thank you, he said. There will be a hearing, Reeves continued, the professional map unrolling even as the person remained. A short one. We can schedule it within the week. The state will recommend temporary custody to you with court supervision. After 90 days, assuming compliance and stability, full legal custody. Is there opposition? Evan asked. Not from us, she said. But the world is loud. I suggest you make it clear, in that way you have, that your daughter is not content. She is a child. Christian thought of cameras, microphones, the hunger of public curiosity. I've already begun, he said. Reeves slid a copy of the report across to him. The science was dry and exact. Numbers behave even when lives don't. On the last line, the names were printed together for the first time in a way that counted. Hale, Christian, Ward, Anya. He had signed 1,000 contracts. This felt like the only one with ink that mattered. Would you like me to tell her? Reeves asked. No, Christian said. Thank you. That's mine. They stepped back into the kitchen. Anya looked up with a thin arc of purple at the corner of her lip. The rabbit sat at parade rest. Well, she asked. As if this were already their ritual, she asks plainly, he answers the world. Christian knelt to her height. It says I'm your father, he said. The paper kind. The always kind. Anya's face did something both small and large at once, the muscles arranging themselves around a new fact. She did not squeal. She did not weep. She set the crayon down with care, then put both hands on his cheeks, thumbs cold from the juice box. Okay, she said, and kissed the air just next to his eye, the way children do when they are practicing accuracy. Can I still call you Mr. Chris sometimes? Always, he said, voice not entirely steady. And sometimes Dad, if it fits. It will, she said, as if she were measuring a dress, and went back to her drawing with the serene greed of the newly anchored. Reeves watched the exchange like a witness to a good verdict. We'll set the hearing, she said. I'll file the recommendation this afternoon. Thank you, Christian said again, the two words as insufficient and exact as tea. When she had gone, Evan blew out a breath that had been doing quiet work inside his chest since Monday. I'll alert counsel, he said. The good kind. And the other kind? Christian asked. Evan grimaced. Already circling. Also, Detective Carter sent an update. He's on his way. Here? Here. Christian looked at the clock. The day had stopped pretending it was ordinary. Carter arrived with rain in his coat and the look of a man whose job is to say hard nouns. He set his laptop on the study table and the room tilted toward it as if to a heat source. We have a line on your gray suit, he said without preamble. Name's Daniel Rusk, contracted through Schroer and Kearns. We pulled travel logs. He was in Boulder that week on a retainer tagged Client Reputation Mitigation. He tapped the trackpad. This is the invoice. And this, another window, is a wire transfer from a shell company to Kearns's personal account the week before. The shell belongs, ultimately, to a holding firm tied to one of your founding board members, Miles Grantham. Evan swore, softly. Christian did not. Years of staying ice under scrutiny had trained his body in a discipline he resented and needed. Proof? Enough to make the good ones nervous, Carter said. Not enough yet to make the bad ones confess. But we'll get there. Rusk, however, is slippery. Disappeared off paper 5 years ago. If he's smart, he's living cash red and camera shy. Find him, Christian said. I intend to, Carter replied. Meanwhile, I'll send this to the state attorney. The custody court won't want it, but the other court will. Christian nodded. There were always at least 2 courts. Carter hesitated. Last thing, I read the journal pages you shared. You were right. She was coming here. Not to hurt your life. To give your daughter her own. Christian swallowed. I assumed as much. She was always that brave. The detective closed the laptop. I'll leave you to your day, he said. Sometimes justice moves like rain. Not dramatic, just steady. After he left, the room felt briefly larger and then exactly itself again. Evan broke the quiet. You'll have to confront Grantham. I will, Christian said. But first, I have to show up in a room where the judge wears the only robe I respect. The hearing was set for Friday. In the 4 days between, the House learned the rhythm of almost normal. Breakfast, a walk in the garden that wasn't yet, calls in which Christian said words like ethics review, and meant them, and an hour each afternoon when he read from Elise's journal by himself in the hollow between late and later. On Thursday, the board chair called. I've seen the beginnings of your review, she said. Are you sure you want to do this live? Absolutely, he said. Whatever is found, we own it. We fix it where it's broken. We say where it isn't. You'll make enemies you already have, she warned. Then I'll be relieved of the burden of pretending they weren't, he replied. And if any person under our name paid to keep my daughter a ghost, I will say their name in a room with cameras. Understood, she said, and he heard in her voice the small click of a decision joining another decision to become a plan. That night, in the lavender room, Anya tested a new question as one tests a step on a bridge. Do judges like cats? She asked. Absolutely, Christian said without hesitation. They just don't admit it. Then maybe we should get one before Friday, she suggested. For legal reasons. Sound counsel, he said gravely. We'll begin interviews after the hearing. She nodded. Deputy Marshmallow is ready to supervise. Friday came like a held breath released. Courtrooms are the opposite of an airport and exactly the same. Places where strangers sit while fates change. Judge Eleanora Vaughn presided with the relaxed ferocity of a woman who had seen too much theater to be impressed by acting. She was white-haired, white-skinned, unblinking. Child Protective Services presented first. Mrs. Reeves spoke of stability and measurable care, of a child whose fever broke and whose nightmares had thinned. We recommend temporary custody to Mr. Hale, she concluded, with supervision and review at 90 days. A court-appointed child advocate, Ms. Barrow, mid-40s, neat notes, a voice that could thread a needle, stood next. I visited the home, she said. I observed Anya with Mr. Hale. Attachment behaviors were present within 48 hours. The child shows resilience tied directly to proximity and predictability. She calls him Mr. Chris and sometimes Dad. She asked if the oak tree could keep secrets. In my professional opinion, this is a home. The opposing counsel, there is always one, even when the state agrees, cleared his throat and asked questions about schedules and photographs and whether powerful men can be gentle at 3 in the morning. Christian answered without performance. I don't sleep much, he said. When I do, I've learned to wake for small footsteps. The judge watched him like a scientist deciding if an element would combust. Mr. Hale, she said at last, you have built things. Can you keep one small thing without trying to expand it into a project? Yes, Your Honor, he said. I can make pancakes and keep promises. A whisper of something like humor moved through the gallery like a mild wind. Judges are human. So are we all. She shuffled papers she did not need to shuffle and then spoke. Temporary custody to Mr. Hale. Review at 90 days with an eye toward permanence. The child will remain shielded from media. Any violations of that would be unwise. Her gaze took in the room, found the invisible cameras, dismissed them with the power of a signature. Court is adjourned. The gavel fell exactly once. It echoed like a door shutting and a door opening in the same wall. Outside, streams of questions braided themselves into an argument with air. Christian did not stop. He got his daughter home. The celebration was smaller than a secret and larger than a holiday. Helen baked a cake that tilted politely toward the north. Anya supervised the frosting with a seriousness architects reserve for bridges. Evan stayed for one slice and excused himself with the lack of ceremony that is respect, not neglect. When the plates were rinsed, Christian and Anya went to the backyard where the oak held light in its higher hands. They carried a small metal sign Helen had helped them order. It read, "For Elise. A garden of truth, where love is spoken aloud." Anya touched the letters with the tip of one finger. "She'll like it," she said. "I know," Christian replied. She liked simple things that meant something. "Like pancakes," Anya said. "Like pancakes," he echoed. They stood there a long time, the way people stand when they finally have permission to be still. Later, when the house was a soft engine of night, Evan texted from an unknown number. "Heads up, a reporter has a leak about Orion pilot conflicts. They'll run a piece by Monday. It mentions a facial flag connecting your name to an employee. They don't have context. Yet." Christian stared at the screen. The old reflex, to manage, to bury, to stall, knocked politely and left of its own accord. He typed back, "We go first. Full statement, Sunday. Names where appropriate. Protections for any employee who speaks." "You're sure?" Evan wrote. "I'm a father," Christian answered. "I don't get to be anything else first." He put the phone face down, as if the act might teach the device humility, and took up Elise's journal. The page he opened to had only 2 sentences, but they filled the room. "Truth is a warm coat on a cold day. It isn't always pretty, but it keeps you from shaking." He closed the cover and carried the book to the lavender room. Anya slept under stars Helen had negotiated with. The rabbit's ear had lost another stitch. It held anyway. Christian sat in the doorway for a while, one foot in the hall, one in the room, feeling how a life shifts load-bearing walls quietly and forever. Proof had arrived on paper today. Tomorrow, proof would be what he did when the world asked again who he was. He stood, turned out the light in a way that let constellations keep their watch, and went downstairs to write a statement that would not excuse him, would not accuse for sport, and would make a small garden of truth in a field where men like him had planted hedges for years. Outside, the oak told the dark what trees always know. Spring begins while winter still thinks it's in charge. Inside, a father began to make it true. Saturday dawned in pale blue. The rain had left the estate rinsed, the garden smelling of soil, trying to remember spring. Christian Hale walked the gravel path with a cup of coffee cooling in his hand, every step weighted by the week just past. A bench in an airport, a fevered child, a court gavel, a truth too long delayed. Behind him, through the tall windows, he could see Anya in the kitchen. Helen had tied her hair into 2 small braids, crooked but triumphant. She stood on a stool, wielding a wooden spoon like a baton while dictating to the rabbit about how much sugar belonged in lemonade. The sight softened him the way music does when it finds the right key. The phone in his pocket vibrated. Evan's name lit the screen. "Morning," Christian answered. "Bad news first or worse news?" Evan asked. "Bad. Rusk is still missing. Carter's team traced one cash withdrawal in Phoenix last year. Then nothing. He's ghosting hard." "And worse news?" Evan exhaled. "Grantham knows. He's moving. I had a quiet call from finance. He's consolidating voting blocks. If he feels cornered, he'll strike." Christian stopped at the oak. Its trunk was rough under his palm. Then we don't let him feel cornered. We put him in daylight before he can weaponize the dark. You're planning a board confrontation, Evan said flatly. I'm planning honesty, Christian corrected. If Grantham paid to erase my daughter, the board deserves to hear it from me, not the press. Truth is good, Evan said. But truth without strategy is a sermon. And sermons don't stop knives. Christian looked back toward the window where Anya laughed at something only she and the rabbit could hear. Then we'll give the sermon armor. By mid-morning, the garden had turned into a workshop. Helen brought out clay pots and seeds as if conjured. Anya crouched in the dirt, knees grass-stained, hair already escaping its braids. We're planting honesty, she declared, burying a seed with ceremonial gravity. And patience. And maybe carrots. Those are good crops, Christian said, kneeling beside her. His hands, accustomed to contracts and aircraft models, pressed soil with an unfamiliar reverence. Will they grow fast? Anya asked. Not as fast as lies, he said, but stronger. She nodded, satisfied. Then her eyes sharpened. Will you have to leave for work again soon? Christian considered. Work, for 3 decades, had been every boardroom, every runway ribbon, every number-climbing screens. Now work was this, kneeling beside 6-year-old hands that demanded answers better than profits. Yes, he said, but not the way I used to. Not so far, and never without telling you when I'll be back. She pressed another seed, looked at him, and decided to accept the contract. That afternoon, Carter returned. He wore the same coat, rain smell embedded. His laptop came open before greetings. Mr. Hale, we've confirmed the shell companies. Grantham routed payments through 3 layers, but the trail holds. Motive likely tied to keeping Elise from pressing claims that might have destabilized your IPO years ago. If she had surfaced with a child then, investor confidence could have cracked. Christian's jaw set. So my daughter was collateral. On paper, yes. But we don't have Rusk's testimony. Without him, Grantham can deny knowledge, claim rogue counsel. I know his language, Christian said bitterly. He'll wrap cruelty in caution. Anya wandered into the study, holding a drawing. Is this about my mom again? She asked. Yes, Carter said gently. About making sure people tell her story true. Anya considered him, then handed Christian the drawing. A tall figure with a crooked mouth, labeled in purple. Bad man. Next to it, a small girl holding a rabbit. Don't let him win, she said, and walked out. The silence she left behind was heavier than any evidence. That evening, Christian drafted notes for the board session. His pen paused above the page. Numbers he could summon. But how to write sentences that braided grief, fury, and law into something the board could neither ignore nor distort? Helen entered quietly. She's asleep, she said. Rabbit, too. You should rest. Later, he murmured. She studied him a moment. Mr. Hale, I've served this house for decades. I've seen you win contracts by outlasting men twice as proud and half as honest. But this is not about outlasting. It's about withstanding. He looked up. Withstanding what? The weight of being known, Helen said simply. Not as an empire, as a father. Her words landed like stones in a river, shaping the current without stopping it. Sunday was supposed to be rest. Instead, Evan arrived with a folder labeled Orion Confidential. This leaked, he said. A reporter will run with it by tomorrow. It shows conflict of interest flags on safety reports. 1 flagged entry. Your name linked to a junior engineer. The algorithm thought you were protecting him. I don't even know the engineer, Christian said sharply. I know, Evan said. But perception eats fact for breakfast. If this drops without context, they'll paint you as a man who covers up for insiders while parading fatherhood for sympathy. Christian shut the folder. Then we go first. Statement tonight. We publish the raw reports, with redactions only for safety data. We show the algorithm's error. Evan hesitated. It's high-risk transparency. It's the only kind I can live with, Christian said. If I hide one truth while claiming another, Anya will know. Children always know. That night, he sat at the desk, Anya asleep upstairs, the rabbit standing sentinel. He began to write. To our employees, our investors, and to the public, for too long I believed silence was strength. I believed problems could be managed in shadows. I was wrong. Silence is where rot grows. In the past week I discovered a daughter I did not know, and a silence around her that nearly cost me everything true. I will not repeat that mistake. Today I release full documentation of the Orion Safety Review, including the system error that linked my name to internal conflicts. Nothing will be hidden, even when it harms. Truth harms less than lies. He stopped, stared at the words, and added, I am a father now. I cannot be less than honest. The press release went out at midnight. By dawn, responses split like weather. Praise, doubt, fury, admiration. Markets dipped, then steadied, then climbed an inch. More importantly, messages flooded from employees who had never spoken directly to him before. Thank you. About time. Now maybe we can breathe. Christian read them at the breakfast table while Anya poured syrup with reckless joy. Are people still mean? She asked. Yes, he said. But some are kind, and we only need enough kind ones to keep going. She nodded, licking syrup from her wrist. Then we'll plant more kindness in the garden. He looked out the window where soil hid the seeds she had pressed yesterday. For the first time in years, he believed something unseen might grow. That afternoon, he prepared for the board session. Elise's journal lay open beside him. The entry, October 2nd. She asked why the sky is blue. I told her it's because light wants to be everywhere at once. She said maybe her papa is like light. I didn't know how to answer. He touched the page, then closed it gently. I'll try, Elise, he whispered. I'll try to be everywhere at once. The garden waited. The board waited. The bad man waited. And so did the small girl upstairs, whose trust had already rewritten his life more than any merger ever had. Christian straightened his tie, slid the folder of notes into his case, and stepped into a world that would demand answers. This time, he was ready to give them. Boardrooms are built to look inevitable. The table a runway, the art an alibi, the light generous but never warm. On Monday morning, Christian Hale stepped into the top-floor boardroom of Hale Corporation with a folder of notes, a drive of documents, and the particular stillness of a man who had decided not to blink. Evan took the seat 2 chairs behind him, the quiet axis of logistics and loyalty. The chair of the board, Allison Hart, sat to Christian's left, white hair to match the white walls, expression unreadable in the way only honest people achieve. Across the table, Miles Grantham adjusted his gold cufflinks as if decorum could litigate fact. He was immaculate, gray suit, blue tie, smile set to inevitably right. "Shall we, Mr. Hale?" Allison asked. "We shall," Christian said. He didn't stand at the head of the table. He stood where the camera could see him and the windows put light behind him instead of in his eyes. "I called this emergency session to do what I should have done years ago, remove corners from the room." A murmur ran the perimeter. Confusion, curiosity, a few preemptive sighs from lawyers who understood corners as a profession. "Over the weekend," Christian continued, "I released the full Orion Safety Review to the public, including the error that linked my name to a conflict I did not have. That transparency cost us a point and gained us a spine. Today, I'm bringing the same transparency here." He nodded to Evan. The screen behind them bloomed with a still frame, a woman in a gray coat at a Colorado transit hub, a child on tiptoe beside her, and a man in a suit so ordinary it was an argument for background. No captions. The room leaned forward. "This is footage recovered by Denver PD," Christian said. "It shows Elise Ward, the mother of my daughter, being approached by a consultant named Daniel Rusk, then under contract via Schroer and Kearns. She collapses minutes later. Last week, we traced payments through Shells to our former general counsel and then to a holding company controlled by a member of this board." Eyes pivoted. Grantham's smile did not change. It only emptied. "Miles," Christian said, and the use of the first name landed like a summons. "I'm giving you the first and best chance to speak." Grantham laced his fingers. "I have nothing to confess. I have been a steward of this company since it was a sketch on a napkin. If a contractor behaved improperly, that is tragic. But to link me to some melodramatic conspiracy? You're a father now, Christian. I understand the need for a villain. I am not he." Allison cleared her throat, an old-school bell of order. "Do you dispute the transfers?" "I dispute their interpretation," Grantham said smoothly. "Retainers pass through entities for privacy in high-stakes matters. We all know this." Evan, who had learned patience by breaking it into small pieces, tapped the keyboard. The screen split into 4: bank logs, the Shell's articles of incorporation, an internal memo, and a second still of Rusk's gate analysis. "This memo," Christian said, "was sent from Valerie Kearns' private account to Rusk 3 days before the footage. Quoting, 'Subject unknown to principal. Prevent paternal claim from surfacing pre-IPO. Minimal contact. Present NDA. Emphasize reputational harm.' It copies, with initials only, someone listed as MG. The room did what rooms do when initials become people. It went briefly, purely silent. "That proves nothing," Grantham said, a hair faster. "Initials are cheap." "Then let's spend more," Christian replied. At 3:17 p.m. that same day, a wire to Kearns' personal account clears from Laurentine Holdings, of which you are the sole discretionary authority. The description field reads, AON Consultancy, Pre-IPO Engagement. A whisper. AON? The discontinued internal project whose ghost had already begun to rattle doors. "You shelved AON," Christian said to the room, not to the man. "I believed you. In fact, it was revived quietly 3 years ago under outdated credentials. It ran facial ID pilot tests in terminals we own. One of those tests flagged a familiarity match between me and a cleaning contractor, Elise. Someone decided that the algorithm's problem was not the algorithm, it was a woman. And someone paid to move the problem off the path." Grantham let the smile drop. "You are drowning in sentiment," he said, voice thinner now. "You've put your personal life on the table and called it doctrine. Companies are not built on diaries." "No," Christian said softly, "but they rot on secrets." He turned to Allison. "Madam Chair, I move for an immediate vote to remove Miles Grantham from the board for cause. Unethical interference with a custody matter, covert funding of a shelved surveillance project, and material misrepresentation to the board." A director downtable, a man who had been carried into the room on years of dividends and been bored ever since, raised a hand. "We can't vote on this now. We haven't had time to prepare." "Neither did the child in that footage," Allison said, and in her voice lived every reason she was chair. "We will vote." Lawyers at the back began whispering in legalese, the language of gears. Evan's phone buzzed. He glanced, scowled, paled a fraction, then set it face down as if the message might leak light. Allison moved the motion. Hands lifted. Not all, not none. Enough? Before you tally, Grantham said, and the calm broke like a pane of old sugar. Know what you're doing. The funds I direct support 3 swing votes. Pull me out and you take air out of your own engines. Markets punish spectacle. Replace me with a press release. Christian didn't bother to speak. He opened a leather folio and slid 3 signed letters across the table. Those votes were recalled at 8:00 a.m. this morning. Their funds will continue under independent stewardship. Their votes revert to free. Allison counted. 8 for, 3 against, 1 abstain. She looked at Grantham the way you look at a bridge you will no longer cross. Miles Grantham, you are removed, effective immediately. Security will escort you to collect personal effects. Your access is revoked. For a breath, nothing happened. Then the door opened as if the room had thought it. Grantham stood. The hands that had signed 1,000 deals could not find purchase on the polished table's edge. He turned to Christian as if there were a script, and this was the line where a man who had believed in inevitability tried indignation instead. You'll regret this. I already regret what it cost to get here, Christian said. Grantham left without slamming the door. Some men hate to give Wood that satisfaction. The room exhaled on a sound like paper reshuffled. Evan slid his phone toward Christian. One message glowed from a name they did not know. I was the paralegal. I kept copies. Project AON memos. MG is Miles. Kearns led the burial. We'll talk if safe. SH. Where? Christian asked. Evan typed, then lifted his eyes. She's local. Allison tapped the table once with her pen, switching from justice to housekeeping with the competence of an air traffic controller. We need outside counsel immediately. Independent. We announce the vote, the removal, and the review in one statement. And Christian, you should go home. He blinked mid-adrenaline. Home? Your house, she said, softening by a degree. Where the story that matters is waiting. He nodded, the obedience of a general to the only commander he still answered to, need. He reached the estate in 20 minutes that felt both longer and shorter than a long-haul flight. The drive was clear. The gate recognized the car. The house breathed like a thing that had learned to trust. Inside, Anya had built a court in the living room out of throw pillows and a wooden spoon for a gavel. Helen presided with a dish towel as robe. The rabbit stood accused of theft of 1 blueberry and contempt of snack time. Verdict? Christian asked, standing at the threshold like a witness who doesn't want to contaminate the scene. Guilty, Anya said, delighted. Sentence is 3 minutes of hugging. The court is merciful, he intoned. Anya raced into his arms. Small legislation passed without debate. He set her down and breathed properly for the first time since the vote. You look like you told the truth to a lot of people, she said, examining him with the solemn glee of children who intuit victories. I did. Did the bad man go to time out? In a manner of speaking. He smiled. His chair is empty now. Good, she said, then glanced toward the window where the garden's first green dared the soil. Can we tell the tree? We can, he said. Trees like updates. They walked outside. The air had the clean taste that comes the minute after rain realizes it has finished its sentence. Anya crouched to check the seeds, as if patience could be coaxed by inspection. Helen watched from the porch with the proprietary tenderness of a woman who has learned to let joy be loud in her own house. Christian's phone vibrated again. Evan, paralegal, SH, will meet at the Atrium Cafe 4 p.m. Anonymous booth in the back. She's scared but steady. Says she has an instruction sheet with Kearns's initials and a text from a burner that begins M. Then a second message. Carter will cover the perimeter. Off book. He typed back, I'll be there. Then after a second, bring a second car. I don't want a tail to learn our habits. Work? Anya asked, catching the pivot in his face. Truth work, he said. A short trip this afternoon. Back for dinner. She nodded, then, after a beat, tested a new permission. Can I help make the spaghetti? There are promotions even the CEO of a continent can't bestow. A 6-year-old does that for you. You can be head of sauce, he said. She approved the title with a nod, both magnanimous and absolute. The Atrium Cafe was glass and fern, and the gentle echo of water that exists so cities can pretend to have a river indoors. Christian arrived with Evan. Carter sat 2 tables away reading a newspaper like a detective in a film who had learned from films. S.H. arrived wearing a coat that tried to be gray and failed. It couldn't hide the color of fear. She was 30, maybe. Pale, freckled, tidy in the way of people who deal with mess by labeling it. She slid into the booth, eyes moving once around the atrium to count exits, then landing on Christian with a mixture of apology and indictment. I was told you were the least dangerous path, she said by way of greeting. I'm trying to be, Christian answered. Thank you for coming. She set a manila envelope on the table and rested both hands on it as if the paper might jump. This is the instruction sheet Kearns handed down when Project Aeon flagged a familiarity alert. It uses that phrase. It says the match is politically sensitive. It instructs staff to reroute any contact from Ms. Ward to a closed inbox. It says, notify MG upon any escalation. And it references a courtesy approach to discourage contact. That's Rusk. Why keep copies? Evan asked. Because I grew up on nurses' wages, she said. Because I watched expensive people make cheap choices and get others to pay. I told myself if it ever mattered, I'd keep proof. It mattered. Carter slid into the booth without drama, flashing a badge just long enough to change the atmosphere by a degree. We can protect you, he said, but we need originals. She pushed the envelope across. Christian didn't touch it yet. Some things deserve their own air. You should know, she added, that Kearns didn't act alone. Grantham was the architect. Kearns was the carpenter. Carter nodded. We'll take her too. And Rusk? She asked. We're looking, Carter said. People who sell silence learn to live without phones. She stood to go, then paused, looking at Christian. I had a father who taught me that we don't get to be brave when it's convenient. We just get to be brave. She swallowed. Please make this count. I will, he said, and he meant the future tense like a vow. He made dinner. It was a mess. The sauce splattered the backsplash like a Pollock argument. Noodles stuck together as if resisting emancipation. Anya stirred with head of sauce concentration. Helen laughed out loud, a sound this house had been hoarding for years. They ate. They were terrible at it in the way that new families are terrible at traditions the first few times. A little too much Parmesan. A little not enough salt. The exact right amount of joy. After, on the porch, under the slow logic of the oak, Christian told Anya a story about a woman who had once taught him how to make coffee and how to fail at pancakes gracefully. He didn't say the name. He didn't need to. Anya knew the shape. Did she like spaghetti? She asked. She liked anything that tasted like time well spent, he said. Anya leaned her head against his arm, the small gravity that has replaced entire empires. Then we're doing it right. He looked out across the yard where a small sign promised a garden of truth. Tomorrow would bring subpoenas and statements, headlines and handcuffs if there was still justice in the world. There would be a man in a nondescript suit to find, a lawyer to indict, a board to rebuild without rot. But this evening belonged to a child whose trust had taught him that rooms don't need corners when the people inside them have nothing left to hide. Inside, the rabbit's ear had lost another stitch. It held anyway. So did they. Morning spread across the estate like fresh paint. The air was crisp. The oak tree caught early light in its branches, and in the kitchen, Anya hummed while Helen supervised a pancake experiment involving strawberries. Christian Hale sat at the table with a manila envelope unopened in front of him, the one the paralegal, S.H., had delivered the previous evening. He hadn't touched it yet. Some truths deserve to wait for morning. "Are you going to open it?" Anya asked, sliding a strawberry slice into her mouth. "Yes," he said, "when my hands are steady." "Do you need the rabbit to help?" He smiled faintly. "Perhaps." Helen set down a plate. "You'll need food in you before you face that," she said, as if courage were a nutrient. He ate, more ritual than appetite, then finally pulled the envelope open. Inside, photocopies of typed directives. Margins annotated in handwriting he recognized from meetings years ago, Valerie Kearns's. The words were blunt. Project A01. Protocol for familiarity alerts. Lines leapt. If match flagged to principal, reroute contact to closed inbox. Minimize exposure risk. Notify MG upon escalation. Courtesy approach to discourage further attempts. Christian closed the file. His jaw ached. "Courtesy approach," he repeated. That was Rusk. Elise was their problem to be discouraged. "Problem?" Helen asked, disgust sharpening her voice. "Problem," Christian confirmed, voice flat. At 10, Evan arrived with Carter. They sat around the study table, the papers between them like contraband. "This is the instruction sheet," Christian said. "Explicit initials, explicit strategy." Carter leaned in. "This nails Kearns. Combined with the payment trail, it nails Grantham. Rusk remains a ghost, but we've got enough to draw charges." "Do it," Christian said. Carter raised an eyebrow. "It's not that simple. These are people with resources, networks. They'll deny, delay, countersue. The state attorney will hesitate unless you back this publicly. And if you do, you invite every shark to your doorstep." "I already did," Christian said. "When I told the world about Anya." "There's no hiding left." Evan tapped the table once. "Then we prepare a press conference. Tuesday. We release the AON documents ourselves. Let daylight do its work." Carter exhaled. "Brave. Risky." "Necessary," Christian said. In the afternoon, he took Anya to the garden. She wore a floppy sun hat too big, its brim sliding into her eyes. She dug furrows with a plastic spade, Rabbit standing watch. "Did the paper say something bad?" she asked. "Yes," Christian admitted. "But bad things only win when they stay hidden." She patted soil down with firm little palms. "Then we won't let them hide. Rabbits are good at finding things underground." He smiled. "So are daughters." That night, the house quiet, Christian opened Elise's journal again. November 6th. Sometimes I think truth is like a plant. You bury it, and the world thinks it's gone. But one day it breaks the surface, and when it does, it's stronger than the boots that stepped on it. He touched the page, almost reverently. "It broke surface, Elise," he whispered, "and I will see it bloom." Tuesday came. Terminal C had been transformed into a stage again. Reporters swarmed. This time, Christian brought Carter beside him, Evan behind, and Allison Hart to his left. He stepped to the podium. Cameras rose like spears. 3 days ago, evidence was brought to me. It concerns Project AON, a surveillance program shelved years ago but covertly revived. Its algorithms flagged a familiarity match between me and a woman, Elise Ward. Instead of investigating responsibly, individuals conspired to bury the contact. Payments were routed. A consultant was sent. Elise Ward is dead. My daughter was left without recognition. This is not speculation. These are documents. He held up the instruction sheet, enlarged on the screen behind him. Lines glowed. Notify MG upon escalation. This MG is Miles Grantham, until yesterday a member of our board. The directives bear the handwriting of Valerie Kearns, former counsel. Both will face the law. I will cooperate fully. The Hale Corporation will commission an independent review of every shadow this project cast. We will not excuse. We will not bury. Questions erupted. One cut through. Mr. Hale, why risk your empire for this? He looked at the reporters the way one looks at a jury. Because empires are nothing without truth, and because a 6-year-old girl asked me if the bad man was in time out, I intend to answer her yes. The room crackled. For once, it was not spectacle. It was revelation. Afterward, back at the estate, Anya waited on the porch, rabbit in her arms. Did you tell them? She asked. Yes, he said. Did they believe you? Some. Enough. Then we planted more seeds, she said, and hopped off the step to check the soil. He followed, the weight of the world lighter than it had been in years. The oak above them stretched, listening, as if to approve. That evening, Evan brought news. The Attorney General's office will pursue charges. Kearns is under protective watch. Grantham has fled the state. Christian poured 2 bourbons, set one in front of Evan, left his untouched. Then we chase him, but not at the cost of her. He glanced at the lavender window where Anya's stars glowed. Nothing at her cost again. Carter nodded. Understood. Later, Christian sat at Anya's bedside. She stirred, opened her eyes. Did the tree like the update? She asked. It did, he said. It said truth is growing. She smiled, half asleep. Good. Then we're doing it right. Her eyes closed. The rabbit lay between them, ear hanging by one last stitch. It held anyway. So did he. Dawn arrived slowly, like a confession. On the back lawn, the patch of soil where Anya had pressed her seeds glistened with dew. The little wooden sign. For Elise, a garden of truth stood like a sentence recently spoken aloud. Christian stood at the window, coffee still hot, listening to the faint clink of spoons in the kitchen. Helen stirring pancake batter. Anya counting strawberries as though a pilot running a pre-flight checklist. The stuffed rabbit rested on the counter like a watchman who had lost many stitches but still stood guard. His phone vibrated. A message from Evan. Update. Attorney General confirms charges will proceed. Kearns requests protection and offers cooperation. Grantham has flown across state lines on a private jet. Rusk still vanished. Christian typed back. Bring Carter here. Today. Carter arrived while clouds were still thin. He spread maps, withdrawal logs, and blurred security images across the study desk. We've got shadows, but no man, he said, voice steady as stone. Rusk uses prepaid cards, registers motels under false names. Last sighting, a bus terminal near the desert, Phoenix. After that, nothing. You'll go, Christian said. I'll go. Carter nodded. You won't. You're now the living witness for a reform about to break wide. And you're father to a girl who is just learning breakfast can be trusted. Christian glanced toward the dining room, where Anya was showing the rabbit how to dip its paw in syrup without staining its shirt. Yes, some journeys must be left to others. Fine, he said quietly. But I'll remain here in truth, not just in presence. Call me when you need me, and when you don't. Carter folded the map. I'll call when it's need and enough. By noon, Allison Hart phoned. The independent committee is in the archives. Full access to AON files, including the sub-basement vault. Give them keys, Christian said. And light. There's another matter. Allison lowered her voice. A reporter is preparing a piece on the whistleblower. We can't block it, but we must protect Anya. Thank you, Christian said. I'll speak first. This time no one speaks for me. He ended the call and entered the kitchen. Admiral Strawberry Command, he intoned gravely. Are we ready for this afternoon's mission? Anya's eyes lit up. Operation Deputy Marshmallow? Helen laughed. The shelter called this morning. They've got a timid gray cat, abandoned at their door. Gentle eyes. We pick him up at 2. Perfect deputy, Anya declared. The rescue shelter was tucked beneath maples. In a quiet room, a pale gray cat crouched in its cage, ears folded like doors, unsure whether to open. Anya knelt, slipped 2 fingers through the bars. The cat sniffed, retreated, then inched forward and touched her hand. Hello, deputy, she whispered. Your team has pancakes on Sundays, a 3-minute hug law, and a pillow court. The staff smiled, handed over the forms. Christian signed, pen moving across paper with a steadiness he had not known in decades. He had signed contracts worth billions, but no signature had been slower or warmer than this. On the drive home, Anya leaned toward the carrier, whispering like a secret rite. In our house, truth doesn't bark, it purrs. Christian caught her reflection in the rearview mirror, a fragile joy mixed with fear. The fear of happiness. Happiness means you have something to lose, but it also means you have something to keep. Later that afternoon, Carter called from a dusty parking lot where the horizon was one unbending line. I've got a lead, he said. An old trailer rented under a fake name. Neighbor swears the man matches Rusk. Out only at night, cap low, canned food. We'll move with a warrant. Don't rush, Christian urged. We'll wait for word. He hung up. In the living room, Anya was building a wall of books for Deputy to hide behind. The cat stepped cautiously, paused, then finally slipped through like water. Anya's laugh, small and pure, expanded the air. Will the man find the bad guy? She asked. He's built for that, Christian said. And we're built for being here. She nodded, satisfied with the division of labor. Night fell. The house widened in the way of places that finally learned to breathe. Christian opened Elise's journal. December. She asked if the sky hears people. I told her the sky hears whispers. Maybe truth does too. He sat with that line until his phone buzzed like a pebble on still water. Carter. Warrant secured. Approaching. 11 minutes later. Subject found. No resistance. In custody. 2 minutes after that. Rusk talking. No lawyer. Christian rose, feeling his feet claim him a little more firmly. By morning, Carter walked in carrying Desert Wind in his coat. What did he say? Christian asked. Enough to repaint the walls, Carter replied, flipping open his laptop. Rusk admits the courtesy approach came from Kearns, approved by MG. He handed Elise an NDA, dangled hush money, hinted at danger if your name surfaced before IPO. Elise refused, pulled Anya behind her. He walked away. 2 minutes later, Elise collapsed. He swears he never touched her. We'll check toxicology, but records were tampered. By whom? Evan asked. Carter zoomed the screen. Deleted under code VK proxy. We know who. Valerie Kearns, Christian said flatly. And Grantham? Rusk shows us a burner text. M says tie it off. No noise. We're tracing the tower. Grantham's hiding abroad. Extradition papers are moving. That's enough, Christian said. Enough to write the story, not as scandal, but as repair. You're not after revenge, Carter observed. I'm after debt, Christian said. A debt to a woman who carried her child across half the country to place her safe. A debt to a little girl planting seeds because she believes tomorrow listens. The news leaked like early rain. Drops, then flood. Investigative reports ran photographs of the instruction sheet, Kearns's handwriting, financial trails to Grantham's shell. Allison held a short press briefing. The board has removed those responsible, the company is cooperating, and reparations will follow wherever AON harmed lives. No excuses, no deflection. That evening, Christian returned home before dinner. In the kitchen, Anya wore a purple apron. Deputy perched like a gray coin at her feet. Helen ladled sauce. Second attempt at spaghetti, less Pollock, more pasta. Loud day? Helen asked. As loud as a machine shop, Christian said. But the wrench is finally turning the right way. Anya set the plates. I asked the tree. It said if truth grows fast, we need stakes to hold it up. What kind of stakes? Christian asked. Sunday pancakes, pillow courts, bedtime stories, she counted solemnly on tiny fingers. And cats. Deputy purred like punctuation. 2 nights after Rusk surrendered, Carter called again. Kearns is cooperating. She admits MG is Grantham. And she wrote a margin note you need to hear. Subject unaware of paternal link. Approaching target not advised. Potential PR liability. That's after the familiarity alert, meaning they knew the algorithm had touched truth, and they chose to bury it. Christian said nothing. Upstairs he heard small feet, then a door close softly. He looked toward the staircase, where he had waited many nights for the lamp to dim. Send me the originals, he said finally. Tomorrow. He ended the call and climbed the stairs. Anya lay curled, rabbit in her arms, deputy at her feet. Starlights blinked on the ceiling. He sat at the edge. Dad? She murmured. Yes. If I get scared, I just say truth, right? Right. And if you're not strong enough yet, I'll say it for you. Until you are. Then, tell me a funny story about Mom. He told her about a Boston apartment kitchen, where Elise taught him to stir coffee with patience and sang the wrong lyrics to an old song until she laughed herself breathless. Anya chuckled softly. Her breathing slowed. He remained, learning the hardest skill of all, to stay still in the presence of life. At dawn, dew jeweled the lawn. From the garden bed, a tiny green shoot pierced the soil, tentative as a first letter. Anya spotted it first. Squealing, "It's up!" Helen fetched a wooden plaque they had painted. "We keep what we say." Christian hammered it into the ground, Anya's small hand holding the hammer with him. Deputy lay nearby, feigning disinterest, but listening with ears alert. The phone rang inside. Allison. International warrant signed. Grantham intercepted at a coastal airstrip. He returns not on red carpet, but in cuffs. Christian thanked her. Not triumph, only relief that justice had a measurable weight. He turned to Anya. Good news, he said simply. Then we don't need more stakes, she decided. Just water. 2 things, he corrected gently. Water and waiting. Waiting is hard. I know, he smiled. That's why grown-ups make pancakes on Sunday, to make waiting shorter. She laughed, clapping. Pancakes! That afternoon, the independent committee called. We've cleared the basement vault. One metal box labeled AON, Pilot 003. Inside, flagged facial ID conflicts. Elise's photo beside yours marked in red. Shared biometric patterns. 74%. Margin note in blue ink. Notify MG. Initials VK. Seal it, Christian said. Tomorrow I'll be there, with scanners and cameras. No more locked cabinets. He hung up. The study was awash in late sunlight. Edges of the desk blurred into softness. On the shelf hung Anya's drawing. A gate, two figures holding hands, a crescent moon. It did more than any award. It reminded him what remains when applause stops. Another buzz. Text from an unknown number. I worked night security at the hospital. I saw who altered the records. I'm ready to talk. Rosa. The name stirred an old memory. A janitorial supervisor who once said the girl sat on her bag like waiting for someone. A bridge between banks of the past clicked into place. Thank you. Tomorrow morning. No press. I'll come alone. He typed back. Evening. The porch hummed with mosquitoes. Anya sat cross-legged on the wicker chair, deputy curled in her lap, Rabbit beside her like a small, forgiving judge. Dad, she said, suddenly solemn, I think Mom is planting trees where she is. And when her tree grows, our tree grows too. Christian looked at the oak, leaves rustling as if someone had brushed them. I think so too. And when we water here faithfully, we'll see green there as well. Then tomorrow we water twice, Anya declared. Once for me, once for Mom. Then the sprout will know it has two names, he said softly. Truth and love. They sat until the first stars, those stars Helen had bargained into nightly duty, lit over the roof. In the kitchen, a frying pan waited upside down, ready for Sunday should anyone require pancakes to shorten waiting. Somewhere far away, officers signed an extradition form. Somewhere very near, a small sprout pushed another millimeter skyward. Between those coordinates, Christian understood. The man who left no shadow had left one after all, not on walls, but in how a child now trusted morning. Tomorrow he would enter the vault, unseal the box, meet Rosa, sign another paper to ensure the committee had authority to finish. But tonight, his work was silence, the kind that helps truth grow. Deputy burrowed deeper into Anya's lap. The rabbit lost another stitch, still held. Christian closed his eyes, letting sleep come without armor for the first time in years. And in the garden, the wooden sign swayed gently in the breeze, repeating the vow carved there. We keep what we say. The morning opened gently. For the first time in years, Christian had slept without armor. In the kitchen, Helen poured tea. Anya sat with the rabbit in her lap, and Deputy stretched lazily in the sun as though he had always belonged there. At 9 o'clock, Christian met Rosa in a quiet cafe. Her nurse's uniform still carried the scent of disinfectant, her hands trembling around a chipped mug. I was on night shift the day Elise died, she said. I saw Valerie Kearns in the records room. She altered the files. Later they forced my signature on a false entry. I stayed silent out of fear. She slid a folder across the table. Not anymore. Not for Elise. Not for her daughter. Christian bowed his head. You've carried this alone long enough. We'll carry it together now. That afternoon, in front of cameras, Allison Hart presented the recovered AON files. Christian stood beside her. On the screen behind them, Elise's photo appeared beside his, linked by the algorithm that others had tried to bury. This is not only my story, Christian said. It is the story of every life touched by shadows. Today we open the vault. All records will be released. All names acknowledged, silence will no longer be our policy. A reporter asked, "Aren't you afraid the company will collapse?" Christian's reply was quiet but unshakable. "If truth can collapse us, then we should collapse." That evening, Anya declared the first official pancake festival. Flour dusted her hair like snow, the kitchen chaos echoed with laughter, and Deputy prowled like a gray judge. After dinner, they walked to the garden. A new sprout pushed through the soil, fragile, green, undeniable. Anya placed a candle at its base with a slip of paper. "Truth is home." Christian read aloud, "For Elise, for everyone once hidden." The oak above them shifted its leaves as though in blessing. Days later, Carter delivered the news. Grantham had been arrested at a coastal airstrip. Rusk had confessed. Kearns had agreed to testify. The system that once buried truth was now being forced to speak it. Christian stood in the backyard that night. Anya pressed against his side. The rabbit patched once more. Deputy curled like a seal at her feet. "Do we still have to be afraid?" she asked. "Yes," he admitted. "But we have truth, and we have each other. That's enough." She nodded solemnly. "Then tomorrow, we water the garden. Twice. One for me. One for Mom." He kissed the crown of her head. "Exactly." The stars blinked awake above the house. Inside, the pan rested on the counter, ready for Sunday pancakes. Outside, the wooden sign swayed gently in the night breeze. "We keep what we say." And in the small patch of earth, the tree of truth began to grow.